It began with a missing envelope one that palace aides reportedly noticed before anyone else did. While preparations quietly intensified for another Sandringham gathering, insiders whisper that one name suddenly vanished from the private circulation list: Meghan. At first, staff allegedly assumed it was an administrative delay, but as revised guest confirmations continued moving through royal channels without correction, a far more explosive truth reportedly emerged. Buckingham Palace had allegedly made a deliberate decision, and the silence surrounding it only made the shock more devastating. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the omission barely registered beyond a handful of trusted aides responsible for coordinating the Sandringham arrangements. According to palace administrative whispers, private staff initially treated the missing name as nothing more than a clerical oversight. Invitations for royal gatherings often moved through several revisions, particularly during periods of heightened security and changing schedules. But reports suggest concern quietly began spreading once updated confirmations continued circulating without Meghan's name ever being restored. One revision became two became three, and with every new document, the silence surrounding the situation reportedly became heavier inside palace corridors already strained by months of tension. Sources familiar with internal royal planning claim Sandringham invitations had become unusually restricted during King Charles's ongoing health struggles. What was once considered a relatively flexible private family gathering allegedly evolved into something far more controlled and symbolic. The monarchy, according to various interpretations from royal commentators, had entered a period where every appearance, every guest list, and every private interaction carried institutional consequences. Sandringham was no longer viewed merely as a countryside retreat. It had reportedly become a protected emotional sanctuary where the crown sought stability during one of the most fragile chapters of Charles's reign. Insiders whisper that Meghan's alleged removal reflected much deeper institutional tensions than palace officials were ever willing to publicly acknowledge. Behind closed doors, reports suggest senior royal figures had grown increasingly concerned about the emotional and political risks surrounding future reintegration efforts involving Harry and Meghan. Some aides reportedly feared that private gatherings could quickly become overshadowed by unresolved tensions, media speculation, and questions about trust within the royal family itself. Others allegedly believed the monarchy needed to establish firmer internal boundaries, as it quietly prepared for a future centered around William and Catherine's eventual leadership. The emotional weight of the situation reportedly intensified, because Sandringham has long carried extraordinary symbolic meaning within the House of Windsor. For decades, invitations to the estate were never seen as simple seasonal gestures. They represented acceptance, proximity, and trust inside the monarchy's private emotional world. Queen Elizabeth II reportedly viewed Sandringham as one of the last remaining spaces where the family could exist away from public pressure while still preserving the traditions that held the institution together. And according to various palace interpretations, that same protective mindset increasingly shaped King Charles's decisions as tensions surrounding the monarchy continued escalating behind the scenes. Royal commentators now speculate that the palace was quietly preparing for a far more controlled royal future, long before Meghan's alleged absence from the guest list became a subject of private whispers. Sources close to royal media circles claim officials had grown increasingly focused on protecting the monarchy from instability during Charles's illness, while simultaneously reinforcing the image of a smaller, more disciplined working royal structure. William and Catherine reportedly stood at the center of that strategy, with senior figures allegedly determined to eliminate uncertainty surrounding who represented the future of the crown. And within that larger institutional shift, the missing invitation reportedly became more than a family slight. It became a symbol of a monarchy redefining its inner circle in real time. But the missing invitation was reportedly tied to something far larger than one family gathering. It was connected to the monarchy's growing fear of instability itself. For generations, Sandringham was never simply a country estate hidden behind royal gates. It was the emotional sanctuary of the monarchy itself, a place where private trust mattered more than public performance. From Christmas traditions to succession discussions, the estate reportedly carried enormous symbolic power within the royal family. And according to palace insiders, exclusion from Sandringham often meant far more than social distance. It signaled a shift in trust deep within the institution's inner circle. Long before modern royal tensions became international headlines, Sandringham reportedly functioned as one of the last spaces where the House of Windsor could retreat from public expectation and reconnect through tradition, loyalty, and silence. Unlike Buckingham Palace, which represented duty to the nation, Sandringham symbolized something far more personal. It was where royal bonds were quietly reinforced away from cameras, speeches, and official ceremonies. According to royal historians, invitations to the estate often reflected not simply family inclusion, but emotional standing within the monarchy itself. To be welcomed there meant trust remained intact. To be excluded reportedly carried consequences far heavier than outsiders could fully understand. Queen Elizabeth II, according to various interpretations from former palace aides and royal commentators, viewed Sandringham as sacred ground within the emotional geography of the monarchy. Reports suggest she carefully protected its traditions for decades, treating the estate as a place where continuity and loyalty could survive even during periods of crisis. Christmas gatherings at Sandringham were reportedly governed by quiet rituals, subtle hierarchy, and deeply understood expectations that rarely needed explanation among senior royals. Every invitation allegedly carried symbolic meaning tied not just to family affection, but to the preservation of institutional stability itself. And insiders whisper that Charles inherited much of that philosophy during the later years of the Queen's reign. As King Charles's health struggles increasingly shaped palace life behind the scenes, sources claim Sandringham became even more emotionally significant inside the royal household. Reports suggest the king relied heavily on the estate during periods of exhaustion and uncertainty, viewing it as one of the few remaining spaces untouched by constant public scrutiny. Yet according to palace administrative whispers, that desire for emotional stability also intensified concerns surrounding who should be allowed inside such a sensitive environment. Some senior aides allegedly feared unresolved tensions involving Harry and Meghan could overshadow private family gatherings already burdened by institutional pressure and personal strain. Those fears reportedly grew sharper as whispers surrounding Meghan's absence from early guest confirmations quietly spread through royal circles. According to various palace interpretations, officials were no longer viewing Sandringham invitations purely through the lens of family reconciliation. Instead, they allegedly approached them through questions of trust, discretion, and long-term institutional survival. Could the monarchy maintain emotional unity behind closed doors while public controversies continued raging outside them? Could private gatherings remain sacred if every interaction risked becoming future headlines, speculation, or renewed media warfare? Those questions, insiders claim, began haunting internal palace conversations more than anyone publicly admitted. Royal historians increasingly describe exclusion from Sandringham as one of the monarchy's most emotionally loaded signals. Unlike public ceremonies, which can be shaped by protocol and political necessity, Sandringham reportedly reflects the Crown's private emotional boundaries. That is why, according to palace whispers, Meghan's alleged removal from the guest list resonated so deeply within royal circles. It was not interpreted merely as a scheduling issue or a logistical decision. It was seen as evidence of a monarchy quietly redefining the limits of trust during one of the most uncertain periods in modern royal history. And as those tensions deepened behind closed doors, the emotional divisions within the family reportedly became harder and harder to contain. And as whispers surrounding the guest list intensified, insiders claim private disagreements inside the royal household became impossible to contain. According to palace administrative whispers, the debate surrounding Meghan's alleged removal from the Sandringham guest list did not unfold through emotional confrontation or dramatic ultimatums. Instead, It reportedly evolved through cold discussions about optics, institutional survival, and future royal stability. Behind closed palace doors, senior advisors and royal figures allegedly questioned whether old reconciliation efforts had quietly reached their limit. Reports suggest a series of highly confidential consultations began taking place shortly after preparations for the Sandringham gathering intensified. Senior aides, ceremonial planners, and trusted palace advisors were allegedly brought into discussions that carried an unusual level of secrecy even by royal standards. According to various interpretations from insiders, the atmosphere surrounding these meetings was deeply uncomfortable from the very beginning, not because voices were raised or dramatic threats were made, but because everyone inside the room reportedly understood the emotional weight of what was truly being discussed. The monarchy was no longer asking how to repair old fractures. It was quietly asking how much instability the institution could continue absorbing before permanent damage began setting in. At the center of those conversations, insiders whisper, stood Prince William. Sources familiar with internal royal operations claim the Prince of Wales increasingly favoured a far tighter working royal structure moving forward, one designed to eliminate confusion surrounding public roles, symbolic status, and institutional responsibility. According to palace interpretations, William allegedly believed years of blurred boundaries had weakened the monarchy's ability to project unity during moments of national importance. To him, reports suggest, Sandringham was not simply a family retreat. It was part of the Crown's protected emotional infrastructure, and access to it carried symbolic consequences that could no longer be ignored. Some officials reportedly feared renewed controversy surrounding private royal gatherings if unresolved tensions involving Harry and Meghan continued following the family into spaces traditionally reserved for trust and stability. According to palace administrative whispers, aides worried that every private interaction risked becoming future media speculation, public interpretation, or renewed institutional embarrassment. And with King Charles already navigating ongoing health concerns behind the scenes, insiders claim the palace grew increasingly determined to shield the monarchy from further emotional volatility during such a fragile chapter in royal history. Yet even as institutional caution hardened within the palace, reports suggest Harry continued privately hoping for some form of symbolic reintegration into royal life. According to various royal commentators, the Duke of Sussex allegedly viewed invitations to places like Sandringham as emotional evidence that bridges had not been completely destroyed. For Harry, insiders whisper, inclusion reportedly represented the possibility that family ties still mattered beneath the institutional distance and years of public fallout. That hope, however, allegedly collided directly with the colder strategic thinking increasingly shaping palace decisions behind closed doors. Courtiers familiar with the discussions later described the atmosphere surrounding the meetings as tense, icy, and emotionally exhausting. There were reportedly no dramatic declarations, no explosive confrontations, no visible scenes of betrayal. Instead, the pain unfolded through restraint, through silence, through the growing realization that the monarchy itself appeared to be shifting away from emotional compromise and toward institutional preservation at any cost. One phrase allegedly surfaced repeatedly during internal consultations: private trust must be protected. And according to insiders, that sentence ultimately became the guiding principle behind everything that followed. Because once the palace began framing Sandringham not as a family gathering but as protected royal territory, the entire conversation reportedly changed. Reconciliation became secondary, stability became paramount. And once those private tensions hardened into institutional policy, the palace reportedly began implementing a far more permanent royal boundary. It was then, according to various royal interpretations, that Buckingham Palace quietly activated what some insiders have begun calling the Sandringham Protocol, an unwritten but deeply symbolic shift redefining who remains inside the monarchy's private emotional circle. Reports suggest the decision carried the unmistakable influence of the old guard, disciplined, cautious, and determined to shield the institution from further internal fractures during one of the most fragile chapters of King Charles's reign. By the time the alleged protocol began quietly shaping royal planning behind the scenes, palace officials reportedly viewed emotional uncertainty as a direct threat to institutional stability. According to sources familiar with royal operations, the monarchy was no longer treating private gatherings as simple family traditions untouched by public controversy. Every invitation now allegedly carried strategic weight, every absence carried symbolic meaning, and insiders whisper that Sandringham itself had increasingly become part of a much larger effort to reinforce loyalty, continuity, and trust during a period when the Crown feared internal fractures could no longer remain contained behind palace walls. Reports suggest the protocol gradually tightened access to private royal gatherings in ways that extended far beyond a single missing invitation. Future Sandringham events allegedly became increasingly restricted to senior working royals and carefully selected family members viewed as institutionally dependable during a time of enormous pressure surrounding King Charles' health and the monarchy's uncertain transition. According to various palace interpretations, officials believed the family needed smaller, more controlled private environments where emotional tensions would not risk overshadowing the fragile stability the institution was desperately trying to preserve. Princess Anne reportedly emerged as one of the strongest supporters of maintaining strict institutional boundaries throughout the discussions. Sources close to palace administrative circles claim Anne viewed Sandringham not merely as private family property, but as protected royal territory tied directly to continuity and discipline within the House of Windsor. For decades, Anne allegedly believed the monarchy survived only because previous generations learned how to separate emotional pain from constitutional responsibility. And according to insiders, that same philosophy reportedly guided her support for tighter restrictions surrounding access to the family's most emotionally symbolic spaces. Prince Edward and several senior palace aides were also allegedly aligned behind the restructuring effort. Reports suggest Edward quietly favoured a more controlled royal framework, centred on predictability, discretion, and trust, as the monarchy prepared for a future increasingly shaped by William's eventual reign. Unlike the emotional turbulence dominating public headlines, insiders claim the discussions inside palace walls became deeply procedural, almost surgical in tone. Officials reportedly framed the changes as practical adjustments connected to security, continuity, and family stability, rather than personal punishment directed toward Harry and Meghan themselves. But many within royal circles privately questioned whether such a distinction truly existed anymore. According to palace whispers, the doctrine behind the Sandringham Protocol allegedly focused on protecting what insiders repeatedly described as continuity and private trust within the monarchy. That phrase reportedly surfaced throughout internal consultations as advisors debated how to preserve emotional stability during a period of mounting institutional exhaustion. Some feared that continued ambiguity surrounding Harry and Meghan's symbolic place inside royal life could create deeper uncertainty for the monarchy at the exact moment it was trying to reinforce William and Catherine as the uncontested future of the crown. Others allegedly believed the palace had already crossed a line where emotional reconciliation could no longer outweigh institutional survival. And so, behind the carefully managed public image of royal unity, the monarchy reportedly continued narrowing the boundaries of its private world with quiet precision. The changes may have appeared procedural on paper, but insiders whisper the emotional consequences spread through the family far more deeply than palace officials were willing to publicly admit. But while the palace attempted to present the changes as procedural, the emotional fallout reportedly spread far beyond Sandringham itself. Sources close to royal media circles claim the news of Meghan's reported exclusion from Sandringham landed with devastating emotional weight inside Harry and Meghan's California circle. For Meghan especially, insiders whisper that Sandringham represented more than a royal invitation. It symbolized belonging, family acceptance, the possibility that one day the fractures of the past could still be repaired. And according to reports, the realization that those doors were quietly narrowing reportedly triggered painful new tensions behind the scenes. Harry allegedly viewed the decision as yet another institutional rejection, one that deepened the emotional distance already separating him from the family he once believed he would always remain part of. Meghan, according to various palace interpretations, reportedly continued hoping private reconciliation was still possible before the alleged Sandringham decision quietly changed everything. California advisors were said to be urging caution, fearing that any public reaction could ignite another media storm, capable of damaging both sides even further. But behind the emotional fallout, many royal observers believe the controversy revealed something far more significant, quietly unfolding inside the monarchy itself: the growing authority of Prince William. Reports suggest the future king had begun taking a much stronger role in shaping the monarchy's long-term future during King Charles's illness, pushing for a smaller and more disciplined working royal structure, centered around clarity, stability, and institutional survival. Alongside Catherine, who insiders increasingly describe as the calming public face of the monarchy's next chapter, William allegedly favored clarity over compromise regarding royal reintegration efforts. Comparisons between William's firmness and Princess Anne's disciplined approach reportedly became common within palace circles, especially as Charles himself allegedly deferred more difficult structural decisions to his eldest son. And as William's influence quietly expanded behind palace walls, insiders whisper the monarchy continued preparing for a future that looked very different from the one Meghan once entered, a future where continuity mattered more than reconciliation, and where the institution increasingly chose stability over sentiment. The deeper reality, according to palace whispers, was that Meghan's reported removal from the Sandringham guest list was never truly about one holiday gathering. It was about establishing a permanent institutional boundary. After years of interviews, memoirs, public accusations, and fractured trust, senior royal figures reportedly concluded that certain royal spaces could no longer remain emotionally negotiable. The monarchy, they believed, had entered an era where survival required colder decisions than ever before. Reports suggest the alleged restriction quietly became part of a much broader long-term strategy already reshaping the monarchy behind palace walls. Courtiers reportedly described the shift with one chilling phrase: duty over sentiment. Publicly, the royal family continued presenting unity, stability, and calm continuity. But insiders whisper that behind the carefully managed appearances stood growing emotional exhaustion after years of tension, mistrust, and institutional strain. With King Charles continuing to battle health concerns, the monarchy allegedly became increasingly focused on protecting stability during an uncertain transition toward William's future reign. Officials reportedly feared that unresolved family divisions could evolve into dangerous constitutional distractions at the exact moment the crown needed clarity more than ever before. And as winter gatherings continue unfolding behind the gates of Sandringham, many outside the monarchy may never fully understand what those invitations truly represent. Not just hospitality, not just tradition, but trust, loyalty, acceptance into the monarchy's most private emotional world. According to insiders, Meghan's reported exclusion reflected far more than a difficult family disagreement. It symbolized a monarchy quietly restructuring itself around a smaller, more disciplined future centered on William and Catherine as the uncontested image of continuity. Princess Anne and the old guard reportedly continued reinforcing traditional royal boundaries, believing emotional compromise could no longer outweigh institutional survival. And somewhere within that painful transformation lies the growing reality that Harry's distance from the monarchy now appears not only physical, but deeply symbolic as well. In the end, reports suggest the crown made its choice: continuity over reconciliation, discipline over sentiment, and controlled trust over emotional uncertainty. And behind the closed doors of Sandringham, beneath generations of royal silence and tradition, the crown reportedly continues preparing for a future where duty matters more than emotion, and loyalty matters more than blood. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.